All right, we are live. Welcome to Kai Talks. This is our fantastic Friday afternoon session. We have Manas Gera with us. Manas is a presenter for La Liga at Facebook. He also does work with Premier League India, has a lot of super experience in football commentating. Manas, thank you for taking the time out and really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Arup. It is awesome to be here. I was just going through your Instagram feed, and you got. Firstly, I want to congratulate you and Ashish and the team for bringing such awesome speakers. There is Peter Drury, Abhinav Bindra, Joe Morrison on your Instagram feed, and then suddenly I'm seeing a picture of me on that Instagram feed. So it's a bit embarrassing, but it's still an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
No, no. Really, I'm glad you took the time out. No, you're doing some fantastic work. So at the end of the day, it's important to tell stories across the board, and of course, we would love to talk about your experiences. So I want to start a little bit about before you sort of started working as a presenter.
Right.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You spent some time with Glitch,
Oh, yeah.
Sports Kida. Has that experience taught you anything to sort of where you are now, and maybe start off? What did you study, and how did you get to really this position where you're at now?
Right, certainly. So I'll tell you from the start what I studied. I did BBA from NMIMS in Mumbai, and I think Arup, you've done BBA as well.
Yeah, BMS. I mean, that's
Oh, okay, cool. It's kind of
yeah,
similar.
same. Yeah, exactly the same. I have from Wilson in Bombay.
Oh, wow, awesome. But actually, what I'm doing today, it has almost zero connection with my education from that time. But it was during BBA that I started interning with social media. And then you
Okay.
mentioned Glitch, right? So at that point in time, ISL had just started when I was just graduating, and I realized that Glitch was in charge of social media of Mumbai City FC, which was
Okay.
Mumbai's ISL club. So I just connected the dots, and I was interning in social media during college, and football was my passion, and the Glitch was the middle point of these two things. So
Nice.
that's how I started my career at the Glitch. And at the Glitch, I was at Glitch for 2 years, and it was brilliant at the Glitch. I worked for Mumbai City FC for 2 years, and I worked on other brands as well, which included WWE, Netflix, and a bunch of other brands. So if you ask me if Glitch was important in my journey to where I am today, most definitely Glitch was incredibly important. And at the Glitch, I was also the budget actor. So I'll give
Okay.
you a little more details about that. So Glitch used to make advertisements, right? And sometimes when the actor of our ads used to bail, used to fall sick, used to just not show up,
Okay.
the bosses used to call me Manas Idara, and I used to be the one in front of the camera with zero experience. And yeah, so that is where I got like a bunch of experience. The Glitch taught me a lot of things. So being in front of the camera was also one of the things that Glitch taught me. So yeah,
Nice.
so those 2 years at the Glitch was super important. And but after the 2 years at the Glitch, if you ask me about Sports Kida,
Did you end up working on the City FC campaign at the time?
yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
So
awesome, awesome.
so in the initially, so that was my first job. I was a fresher when I first got into the Glitch. So in the first few months, they didn't let me work. They asked me to just overlook stuff because I was a
Hmm.
fresher, and this was a very big brand at that point in time for the Glitch. So I was just overlooking. But the next season, which I think was the second or third season for Mumbai City FC, we had a campaign called Mumbai Meri Jaan. So that was a hashtag,
Hmm.
and this
Right.
hashtag was plastered all over the stadium and all the branding around social media. So I was in charge, me and a team was in charge of the content for Mumbai Meri Jaan, and it was brilliant. I got to interview Nicholas and Elka, and that was actually the first time. Nicholas and Elka was our player coach in that season, and that was the first time I had experience interviewing somebody. And I actually wore a bag which had like an Arsenal logo here, and and then Elka and Arsenal have a relationship of sort. So he didn't mention Arsenal. I wanted him to mention Arsenal. I asked him who was your favorite manager in your time as a footballer, and Anelka is one of the players who's been under multiple managers, and I thought he'd say Arsene Wenger because Arsene Wenger is one of my role models, and I thought he'd say some good things, but sadly he didn't mention Arsene Wenger. He mentioned Carlo Ancelotti was one of his
Okay.
favorite bosses, but yeah, basically the Glitch was very good experience for where I am today.
And so yeah, you were segueing into Sportskeeda, and so that what did you do there? Tell us about your experience there.
So after 2 years at the Glitch, I think Mumbai City FC changed their agency and they weren't with the Glitch anymore. So I thought, okay, cool, I'm heading out as well because Mumbai City FC was a priority at that point in time. So what I did was I wanted to stay within the field of football because I knew that if I'm doing something in football, I'm always going to be interested because football's been my love since I was a child, right? So social media was done. Then I wanted to try out different fields, and one of the fields was writing, long form writing. And Sportskeeda was a great name to be associated with, and they gave me a platform to put out my work. So I was just exploring different fields, different verticals within football, and writing was definitely one of them. I was very interested in writing, and Sportskeeda again gave me a lot of experience. I got to interview some big names, Karan Sani, who used to play in the ISL, Indranil Das Blah, who who was the CEO of Mumbai
So
City
yeah.
FC. Then there was Paul Dickoff, who was a former Man City player. Presently, he's a brand ambassador of the club, and Farhan Akhtar as well. Like I don't know how he's associated with football. He was actually the brand ambassador of Champions League some time back. But basically, I got to interview these people, and Sportskeeda gave me a very good platform to talk to such people and build experience. And that's where I started my experience talking to footballers and just learning about this industry. So Sportskeeda was definitely a very important part. So where I am today, like these are like the small um, cogs of the bigger wheels. So, and right now again, I'm not anywhere close to where I intend to be. But yeah, all these have been very important parts of the journey.
Awesome. So with Facebook, you spent some time there. Obviously, presenter for La Liga. Tell
Right.
us a little bit about that experience, and now obviously with sort of where Messi is moving to another league, we can touch on that as well a little bit. But tell us a little bit about Facebook and your time
Are we sure that we want to talk about Messi? There's Ashish, I think, who's from your team, who's a Barca fan.
there. No,
But
no,
okay,
no
so
worries.
before I can talk about Facebook, actually, there were a bunch of other jobs that I'd done before Facebook happened. So as I was mentioning, I'll get to Facebook, but
Yeah.
there was a lot of other parts of this journey that eventually led to Facebook. And one of them, in addition to writing social media, I was also acting. So I live in Mumbai,
Okay.
and in Mumbai, it's there's this place called Aram Nagar in Warsaw, which is the hub of all casting directors. You just go there, you hold a placard, and you tell them, "This is my name, these are my profiles, and I would appreciate if you put me in an ad." And so this was basically the way I wanted to get in front of a camera and be confident in front of a camera because I was very camera shy. I wasn't very fond of the lens till
That
date.
is that will surprise a lot of people, but yeah, go ahead.
So that's what I tried to be better at. So when I went to these casting directors, I eventually in that 1 year I got like 6 7 ads, and that just made me a little more comfortable in front of the camera. So that was another way I eventually came here. And then it was this, and then also I called a few friends over and I did a bit of YouTube. So there are some private videos. I didn't put it up on, I didn't put it up on public, but there's some private videos which I just called a few friends home and we discussed football. So this was another way that I just tried learning about. So I just tried out different fields in football, and all of this eventually led to a gig with Sony during the Russia 2018 World Cup. So
Right.
I pitched an idea to them. Sony, thankfully, they liked it, and they sent me around India to cover a few stories from
Fantastic.
FIFA World Cup. And so the campaign was "Meri Dusri Country," and they asked me
Yeah.
to go around the country documenting fandom for another country. So that was a
Yeah.
great campaign, and I'm very grateful for that. And that is where I met Joe Morrison. So Joe Morrison was the presenter for the 2018 Russia World Cup on Sony,
Yeah.
and I had just come back to the Sony office to see how my edits are going on. I just wanted to learn about editing, and that is where I just gone to the water cooler. I just wanted to get a water break, and at the water cooler, I see Joe Morrison, and it was quite insane because like all of us, like Ashish as well, would vouch for. I've grown up watching Joe Morrison, Carlton Palmer, Budgie on my TV, and I'm an Arsenal fan, so we've had some very tough nights. Champions League nights are something that we don't see often as Arsenal fans. But when I was young, this is when I was in school, 13 years old, and so Joe Morrison, Carlton Palmer, Budgie used to give me company. And then suddenly I'm seeing Joe right in front of me. And it was surreal, but honestly, Joe was so friendly. Like we spoke for 10 minutes about my work and how I can be better, and those 10 minutes were just incredible. And there was Sunil Chetri behind him, which was again, I'm losing my mind over here. So that was, I met Joe for the first time, and then we kept in touch, and then eventually I got with Joe to Facebook. So Joe went to Facebook as well after the Russia World Cup, and then he took me along. So
Awesome.
that's
Awesome.
how I entered Facebook. There was a bit of auditions before that, but Facebook.
And of course, I know you heard Joe's interview prior to this, and he had some fantastic words to say about you, and it shows because exactly what you're saying. I mean, you telling me that you're camera shy, one is I wouldn't believe it. Two is you telling me what you did to sort of remove that fear, which is, I mean, you knew what you wanted to do, and that's
Yeah,
fantastic. Yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, at the end of the day, going out there and getting your hands dirty and
Mhm.
figuring out, okay, listen, this is where I want to be. That's awesome.
Yeah, so football presenting was always the end goal. I wanted to try out different fields, but football presenting was something I always wanted to do. And being an actor in
Nice.
Mumbai, yeah, it's a little tough. Like sometimes it gets a little shady, but it was a good experience. Yeah.
No, no, fair enough. So with Facebook and La Liga, how's the time there? And I mean, any interesting stories or any interesting travels? Of course, up lead up to 2020, of course, when travel got shut. But then,
Right.
how did things move on since then? I mean, you've been presenting from home, or again, just maybe tell us the entire journey.
So honestly, there's so many stories from Facebook and La Liga. So I'll tell you how it started. So my trip to Spain was a little delayed because my business visa took a bit of time. And the season starts in September. I ended up getting there in October, November. And I took these 3-4 months to learn Spanish. I joined a class called Academia de Español, which is right here. And I started learning Spanish, and I started learning to be a ground reporter. So when we see, I was picturing my role to be that of a ground reporter. Like I see a lot of these guys in the Premier League. There are these guys who are at the ground who just talking about the team news, how the climate is, the condition is, the fans are building up. And that was what I had in mind when I was on my way to Spain, when I was sitting in India and preparing for Spain. And then once I get to Spain, which is late October, November, I was talking to Joe Morrison, like in the flesh, and he was telling me, Manas, throw that out of the window. That is not what we want from you. We want you to be a fan. We want you to be the eyes and the ears of a fan. It's like you have a golden ticket, and basically
Oh, wow.
you have to convey to a fan the experience of being pitchside with Leo Messi, with the Luis Suarez of the world, and that is what I wanted to do. I do not want you to be a reporter. For start, like initially that kind of shook me because I was preparing for a very long time to just be that guy. But I loved this brief personally because it was so much more authentic. And right before this, when you were talking to Joe, he mentioned the importance of authenticity, right? To not be fake. And I
Yeah.
love this brief because it let me be authentic. Because I was genuinely almost like I was in awe of Lionel Messi standing in front of me. So the first time I saw Leo Messi was at Butarque. Butarque is the home of Leganes, and that was the first match I went for, Leganes versus Barcelona.
Oh,
And when
wow.
I saw Messi, my cameraman's like, I'm ready to roll, Manas, let's shoot your story. And I told the cameraman, listen, I need 2 minutes because that was the first time I saw Leo Messi. And that time he had this very royal beard. And I just saw
Yeah.
him and he just walked by me. I was right bedside. He was coming to warm up. And I told the guy, listen, I need 2 minutes because I'm honestly a fan at the end of the day. And I just saw Messi and I needed 2 minutes to just process what is going on. And so these kind of things were very authentic, right? So I like to believe that we got this authenticity out in the stories that we put out on Facebook. So yeah, like this Messi story, my cameraman is wondering, Manas, listen, are you okay? He didn't speak much English. Manas, ¿cómo estás? ¿Cómo estás, Manas? And I told him, I'm okay, just give me a minute, just give me a minute. So yeah, this was my entry into Facebook, and the brief was brilliant. He just asked me to be a fan, and this way I got to cover. My first story was a story about food, so authenticity, right? So when we Indians, I personally love food, and I went to Butarki, the home of Leganés, and I went and saw the sandwiches that they get at halftime. So the sandwiches. So food is a very important part of their culture and recognized in specific. So I covered that. I covered their fan shop. The fan shops are something that is very important for football clubs as well. And every Leganese had a very nice fan shop and club shop. And yeah, these were like the bits and pieces that I had to cover, and which I wasn't expecting to cover, but I'm glad I got to cover like these little nuances of a football club. So it was a brilliant brief.
Nice. I'm sure there are many listeners who are fairly jealous of. I mean, you're lucky. But what I see in this journey is, um, you've prepared for that. You've prepared for the time that you've gotten lucky. So I think,
Hmm.
and I think that's that's really important,
Thank you.
because you've I mean, you've figured out the hard way. You said, okay, listen, and I really like your story about, with Glitch. You said, okay, you
Hmm.
put two and two together, saying, okay, Mumbai City FC, these are the guys who are doing it. I got to be there,
Yeah.
and find your way. No, no, awesome, awesome. Tell us. So I know you said you're an Arsenal fan. So I mean, it's tough at this particular point. I know you guys had good days, but any stories there as a fan? I mean, have you been to the stadium, and I know some of these, any interesting interviews you've done,
Yeah.
anything there?
So actually, if you can see in the distance, there's a Dennis Bergkamp poster in my room, and
Uh
it's got a commentary from the Dutch commentator who went Dennis Bergkamp, Dennis Bergkamp, Dennis Bergkamp. Ah, and that's
Nice.
one of my favorite posters. So that was the generation of Arsenal that I fell in love with, and I'm still in love with the club. It's just a little tougher being in love with Arsenal. But I have a few stories about Arsenal. So when I left the Glitch, I told you I tried writing, I tried acting, I tried YouTube. So another thing that I tried was getting in touch with Arsenal. In this time, I did a bunch of things. It was 2 years, which was, and the stories that I'm telling you are the success stories. There are a bunch of rejections as well, but we're gonna make this a happy
Yeah.
conversation and
Fair
talk
enough.
about the success stories. So when I left the Glitch, I wanted to also try my luck with Arsenal, and I got in touch with the Arsenal social media team. Adrian Clark was he is a presenter for Arsenal. He's a former player of Arsenal, and he's a presenter. I reached out to him on LinkedIn, and he then got me in touch with Chris Harris, who was in charge of Arsenal's social media. And I wasn't expecting anything. When I usually go with these pitches, I don't expect much. I just try my luck. And those guys were very kind, and they told me, "Manas, it's great that you reached out. Why don't you make some content, some local content for Arsenal Mumbai?"
Yeah.
And I ended up doing that. We ended up making some. I ended up shooting some work with Arsenal Mumbai, which ended up going to their agency, and then their agency made a piece of content which ended up being geo targeted to the Indian audience. So that was
Oh,
the first time I worked with Arsenal. I've been an Arsenal fan since the start. So working with Arsenal is honestly one of the top
nice.
top special things in my life. And then there was one time where I went to London in 2019. My brother, he booked a ticket to the ICC World Cup. We went for the last group stage game, West Indies versus India. And I
Awesome.
said, dude, if I'm going to London, I love cricket, but I have to also go to Arsenal. And we went for an Emirates Stadium tour. But I had to cancel my stadium tour to the Emirates because Arsenal, Chris Harris, who I just mentioned, he told me, Manas, if you're in London, come over. We'll probably make some content for India. And again, at this point in time, I'm just losing my mind, but I'm trying my best to stay professional. I'm like, yes, Chris, absolutely. We'll make some content. I'll be there tomorrow. I didn't tell him that I have my stadium tour planned. I told him, let that be. I'll get another one. So Chris picked me up at the station. It wasn't the Arsenal station. It was near London Colony. London Colony is Arsenal's training ground, which is on the outskirts of London. And my brother took me to the station, and we went. From there, Chris Harris picked me up, and so my brother wanted to come as well because Chris was taking us to London Colony. But Chris told him, "Sorry, man, this is a very exclusive venue, and we'll only be able to take one person." So my brother was left behind, and that day was the India-New Zealand semi-final in the ICC
Wow.
Cricket World Cup. So, and I didn't know what I was supposed to do at that point in time. Chris told me in the car on the way to London Colony that let's try this out. Let's do a behind the scenes of Arsenal's media day. And coincidentally, that day was media day for Arsenal. And what I did was I did a behind the scenes at London Colony. And I'm seeing my favorite players in the world. There's
Wow.
Aubameyang, There was Mesut Ozil and Granit Xhaka, Callum Chambers, Rob Holding. All of them are in front of me, and I'm just holding my camera, my little Android phone. I'm holding it in front of me, and I'm just shooting. I'm just shooting them. And I started talking to a couple of these guys, and it was a surreal experience. So this was my my like chance with Arsenal, and I always wanted to work with Arsenal, and I never got to work full time still, but I'm still super grateful for this Arsenal experience that I had. So yeah, I have worked with Arsenal as well, and I'm pretty proud of that. And I did a Facebook Live. The first time I went live in front of a camera was with Arsenal as well. So that is another story.
Nice.
Right.
So I know you mentioned at some point that, I mean, you're working towards being a presenter,
Right.
but that's you still have a sort of long way to go.
Mm-hmm.
What's the big picture? What's the end game for you? And I mean, how do you plan to do that? I mean, you have some fantastic. I see that you're persistent. I can tell.
Thank you.
So what's the end goal, and what are you going to be sort of pushing towards every single day now towards that goal?
So that is a solid question because I personally myself don't have a perfect answer to that. So what the last year has taught me during the pandemic, I couldn't go to Spain. So I was a little worried because how do I be a presenter while I'm in the confines of my room? So in the
Yeah,
last year, what I've done is I've worked on editing and production. So my segment was earlier just presented by me. Like when I was in Spain, I was just the guy talking onto the mic, and
right.
there was a different cameraman. The video used to go to a production house, and they used to put it out on TV. But in the last year, during the pandemic, I presented, I produced, I edited my own segments, and I had a really good time doing all these things. I learned editing, and I really liked it in the last year. So if you ask me, my long term goal, presenting is always my passion, and I want to talk football, and I like talking football. That is always my passion, but I'm never gonna restrict myself to one particular thing at this point in time, especially during the pandemic. Like you can't
Yeah,
predict anything that's going to happen, and so I've just been learning different aspects. I have now in the last year I have a full studio in my house, so I've learned different arts of production, which include, like, right now you have great light on your face, right? So that is important. Good audio is important. My audio right now is not great because I've sadly not put up my mic. Good light, good audio, after that good camera, good, and after that the editing process. So if you ask, do I want to be a presenter in the long term? My answer would be yes, I do want to be one, but I won't say that I will be one. I don't want to restrict myself to that. Production and editing is something that also fascinates me. And right now, if it's within football, I would love to do anything. I mean, I'm still in a phase of my life where I want to learn. I'm a freelancer. I'm not bound to any company at this point in time. And yeah, I'm just learning right now. And I hope I have a more concrete answer to this question in a few years' time. But right now, I'm
no, no,
happy.
it's your that answer was awesome. Um, in terms of your own personal brand and own content, is that something that you're planning to sort of work on? Maybe do some stuff on YouTube and obviously
Mhm.
Instagram and others. Because at the end of the day, that's I mean, of course, you have the stars, you have the players who
Right.
are celebrities, but then at the end of the day, when you have people in business, presenters, others, we're moving to a world of, personal brand.
Right.
So what's I mean, you have any sort of goals or any things that you're planning to do there? Any fun things that we can expect from Manas Kera?
Arup, that is an incredible question because I think that would be my one weakness because like social media is something that I need to be better at because I've personally never been someone who's very like I know everything about social media. I worked at the Glitch, so I know I was a writer for social media, but never my own brand. I was a writer for different brands. But if you ask me, I never made content for my own brand. I always used to make content for started with Mumbai City FC, then I went to Arsenal, then I went to Russia, then I went to Facebook. So personally, yeah, absolutely. I think I should be working and I will be making content for my own brand. But at this moment in time, the first actually you started this conversation with Premier League India, and
Mhm.
that is something that I want to talk about. So today was the first day. Today is a very happy day. I'm glad I met you today.
Awesome,
Today
awesome.
was my first video that went live on the PL for India social media handle.
Oh, super.
Yeah,
I'll
so
be sure to check it out and share it as well.
definitely, definitely. So that is another avenue that I'm making content for right now. So the Premier League India. So on a personal point, I'm not exactly planned anything out, but I should. I'm glad you brought up that point. I will, I should, I will. But right now, Premier League India, the social media channels is where you will see me. I'm gonna be there every week on their different platforms. So yeah, that is where you can find me in the near future.
Fantastic. No, you have a super season ahead, so definitely all the best for that.
Thank you.
So, we have many young, budding
Mhm.
professionals like yourself who, I mean, want to be in your shoes. But of course, not everybody can be a presenter, not everybody can be in front of the camera. But I mean, at the end of the day, there are other jobs. Like you said, there's writing, there's editing, there's, I mean, somebody who's actually, somebody needs to capture you. So maybe any tips for people who, I know I don't want you to sort of give tips so that you have additional competition, uh, but but no, just young professionals who want to come out there and sort of do what you do, maybe create content, hopefully get in into different leagues across football and maybe cricket, even other sports. I mean, right now there's so many things going on.
Right.
It's I mean, the scope in sport is a lot. But any tips for these young
Yeah.
professionals?
So for starters, like I'd never consider these guys competition because so I'll tell you what happened. So in those 2 years after I left pitch, when I told you I was experimenting with different fields, in
Yeah,
those 2 years I reached out to multiple people who are from the field of sports presenting, which includes one is Joe Morrison, of course, who is like a role model. Then is Anant Tyagi, who is in charge of Star Sports football. He's the English football chief of Star Sports.
correct.
Then there is Manas Singh, who's on Sony, who's also a friend of mine, Manas.
Sony, right.
And there's John Dykes as well, who I reached out to on LinkedIn. All of them were incredibly generous with their advice to me when I was a fresher, when I was when I didn't have much work at that point in time. So it's just something I feel I'm responsible to do. There are a lot of guys who've like got into my DMs on Instagram who asked me, Manas bhai, can you just guide us in this field? We want to do something like what you're doing. And I'm always like, if anyone gets into my DMs, I'm always generous. I try to be as generous and I try to be as helpful giving them advice. So if there's advice that I want to give, honestly, for starters, I'm a fresher myself, so I can't really say it's great advice, but this is just like what I think. I had, as I said, I tried different verticals within the field of football, and I always knew, as I said, that if I'm doing work in football, I will be driven and I will be a happy man at the end of the day. So what I would advise is everybody has different interests. My interest was presenting. If you have interest in making videos, if you have an interest in photography, if you have writing as an interest, so just explore different fields. And in today's world of the internet, the information age, there's ample opportunity to, if you just be smart about it, there's a lot of opportunity around to just get work within your field of interest. So yeah, if there's one piece of advice I could give, just explore different fields and take some time off. Don't worry about I like those 2 years I didn't get paid very well at all. It was like I had a tough time in those 2 years making money. And but those 2 years are possibly the most important 2 years of my career because I just explored different fields. And I think that is the one piece of advice I would give to people. Just try exploring different fields and make a little money. Sportskeeda wasn't the most generous paymaster, but they used to give me some money. Acting, the 6 ads I did acting was decent money as well. So make sure you're taking care of that responsibility. So I made sure I was taking care of that, and at the same time, just explore different verticals within your field of passion. That's what I
Yeah.
would.
No, that's awesome. We have like a couple of minutes. I want to ask you one question related to on match day or match day minus one. What's the day? Tell us the day in the life of you. What do you? How do you prepare during the game? How many screens do you have open, or do you? I mean, really depends if you're presenting or not. I'm just trying to understand what does it look like for you match day minus one and match day.
So if you ask me from my time in Spain, the few days before match day, I used to just do all the research I could about the club. So when I was in Spain, it wasn't just the big clubs I was going to. I was going to some of the smallest stadiums in Spain. So actually, literally the smallest stadium in La Liga. I was at Ipurua, which is my favorite stadium, which is the home of Ibar, who's sadly been relegated this season. So 1 or 2 days before, like, travel also takes a lot of time. So I was in charge of my own travel. I was in charge of my own accommodation. So I had to figure these things out. So the logistics was one aspect of the things. And getting to Ibar is another tough task. I had to take a flight to Bilbao, then I had to take a bus to Ibar, then from the bus stop I had to walk another mile to my accommodation, which was a really small place. So this was one thing I used to do like 2-3 days before match day. In the 2 days before match day, I did my research about the club, about the city, about the fans, about the culture. That is one thing I did. And I made sure I went out of my accommodation around the stadium and just explored different spots within the stadium. Because my job, as I mentioned, was not a reporter's job, but a job to find stories from the football club. So when I went to Ibar, I discovered this bar outside Ibar, outside Ipurua Stadium called Bar Ipurua, and that was the official bar of the football club. And that is like, okay, this is going to be one story. I'm going to go inside the bar. I'm going to try out the sandwiches. I'm going to try out the famous drinks, and I'll just like talk about that. Then I went further. I saw the club shop, and I'm like, another story right there. So these are the stories that I try to pick up on the days before match day, and on match day itself, it's almost like completely seamless, because I also, in addition to these stories that I picked up, I pick up stories from fans, because that is something you can only do on match. That is not something you can prepare for. So I picked up stories from fans. I picked up stories from inside stadiums, which is again something I don't get access to before match day. So yeah, so preparation and trying to just bring authentic stories is what I'm trying to do in the few days leading up to match day. And I really miss Spain a lot. This was a lot of fun. Preparation to match day is just incredible fun. And if you ask me about this last year, as I said, I was less of a presenter, more of a producer and narrator. I used to present as well, but not as much. And most of my week used to go into conceptualizing, producing, editing the segment that eventually used to come on match day. So I usually, it wasn't like a 1 day work, it was an entire week's work, which used to eventually culminate on match day, and my segment used to be shown on match day. So yeah.
This coming season, are you going to end up watching more games from League A versus La Liga?
Oh man, this is I honestly, I'm so emotional personally about Messi. I cannot imagine what a Barcelona fan must be feeling. But for starters, I don't think we have a broadcast of the French league in India. So I'm pretty sure there will be one by at least by Messi when Messi
Let's hope
joins.
so.
Yeah, so oh my god, that PSG side is just incredible. To sign the Barca and Real Madrid captain in the same transfer window.
Yeah, it's unreal.
So me and Ashish as well, who's silently listening to us, the Barca fan, we'll watch the French league for sure. It's going to be incredible.
No, incredible. Manas, this conversation has been awesome. No, I mean, at the end of the day, it's really important what you do,
Right.
because at the end of the day, we need to. I mean, the stories that you bring out and talking to fans about fans, bringing up the smaller things
Mhm.
is is what brings sort of football and sport to life.
Right.
And really appreciate the work that you're doing. And yeah, it's early, like you said, in your career. There's a long way to go. So all the best,
Thank you so much, bro.
and all the best for the football season ahead. It's been a fantastic conversation. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, good sir. You're doing a really good job. I can't wait. I saw Joe Morrison's session was super, and Peter Drury. I just cannot wait for that. So
No, yeah, super. Take care.
thank you, Roop. Thank you, Ashish.